Ukraine is calling on Russia to allow civilians to escape the southern port of Mariupol. The local council says Russian forces who have surrounded the city have reduced it to ashes with constant bombing. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says 100,000 civilians are trapped without food, water, or medication. Zelenskyy says Russian forces seized a humanitarian convoy attempting to bring relief to Mariupol's besieged residents.
Bombs keep falling on Mariupol. The besieged city is under relentless shelling by Russian forces. Satellite pictures show the extent of the devastation. Apartment buildings burnt out. A metal factory shelled. Hundreds of thousands of people are still stuck here under the falling bombs.
At the moment, there are around 100,000 people living in Mariupol under inhumane conditions, under a complete siege, without food, water and medicine, under constant shelling and bombardment. For several weeks, we have been trying to organize stable humanitarian corridors for Mariupol's residents, and almost all our attempts have been, unfortunately, obstructed by shelling or deliberate terror by Russian occupiers.
Those who were able to flee Mariupol say conditions there are desperate.
The people of Mariupol aren't being heard. They're in need of help. People don't have water. They drink water that's not even fit for industrial purposes. There's no one you can ask for help.
Ukraine announced an agreement had been found to evacuate residents from towns and cities through 9 humanitarian corridors on Wednesday. Russia continues to pummel cities across Ukraine, like here in the capital Kyiv, where drones attacked a scientific institute. Or here in Kharkiv, in the northeast of the country, where missiles fell. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is still hopeful that talks with Russia can bring peace. He says Ukraine is prepared to discuss the status of Crimea and the separatist Donbas region after a ceasefire. But any agreement would have to be approved by the Ukrainian people.
We can speak now to our correspondent, Fanny Fachar. She's standing by for us in western Ukraine, in the city of Lviv. Hi, Fanny. We are hearing the news that an agreement has been reached to evacuate civilians trapped in Ukrainian cities via 9 humanitarian corridors. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, this is pretty good news if those 9 humanitarian corridors actually operate and people can be evacuated. Something, of course, as we have seen during this war, during the past weeks, either worked in a very limited way or not at all. And when it comes to the town of Mariupol, unfortunately, there's no agreement there in terms of trying to get people out and have a humanitarian corridor established to get a significant number of people out, at least 100,000 of people. Instead, Ukraine said that in a nearby town, they basically set up transportation for people who make it out thus far. And of course, so many of them would like to just make it here where we are right now, to Lviv, which is basically the last town on the way out from Ukraine to Poland. But millions and millions of people who have that goal to finally leave remain trapped in the residential areas, remain trapped in a situation where they themselves do not know, not just how to get out, but even just how to get basic information, how to make that attempt, that desperate attempt at this point, especially Mariupol, to exit Ukraine.
Yeah, as you said, there are an estimated 100,000 civilians remaining in Mariupol. It has been hit so hard. What conditions are they facing?
It's really hard to put that in words at this point. Just imagine, for 4 weeks now, people either had limited access or hardly any access actually to food. Some of them are reported to drink very unsafe water, actually. There is no clean water, no power, and as I say, no access to communication. You have to imagine people are out on the street, they can't be buried, and people who are in dire need of medical help to to help survive can't just make it to the next hospital because they are bombed. As the city council pointed out yesterday from Ukraine, they really painted a very devastating picture, calling Mariupol a place that's been reduced to ashes of a dead land, quote. I've never been to Mariupol, but just from the sources we have on the ground, and if that information that we are getting is just one part of the story, I don't even want to imagine what the full scope of the devastation is in Mariupol.
Fanny, just a quick last question. Talks to end the fighting have continued. Any progress there?
President Zelenskyy said actually early this morning that there's progress that's being made step by step. At the same time, he also said that Ukraine and Russia remain confrontational. So in a way, a mixed message, a message towards Ukrainians who are here, who are showing resistance. Hang in there. There's going to be some agreement at some point. While on the other hand, those who can leave, try to leave from these besieged towns like Mariupol or Kharkiv or Kherson, Sumy and other places. So if you ask me personally, and given the negotiations that Ukraine already had, the delegations of Ukraine and Russia, I don't see an immediate change at this point. What people are hoping here on the ground with President Zelenskyy reaching out to various politicians, but even to the Pope yesterday, that at least a ceasefire or a limited ceasefire can be reached.
DW's Fanny Fachar reporting there for us from Lviv. Thank you so much. We can get some more perspective on this story now with Gulsana Mamedjeva. She heads Ukraine's Directorate for Strategic Planning and European Integration at the Ministry of Digital Transformation in Ukraine. Thank you for joining us here on DW. Ukraine has made very clear it wants to join the European Union. How likely do you think that is?
First of all, hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Actually, the opportunity is very real, and it's necessary for the peace and security in Europe, and Ukraine has been shown that it deserves it, and it's strongly fighting for the European Union values and for the life actually. And we also see the really strong consensus among European Union member states, governments, and also citizens, and really high support of Ukraine accession of the European Union. So this is definitely that need to be. We have this agreement already on political level, and now we have to implement it. But we have to move really quickly because of all the situation, and the both sides and the Europe in general will greatly benefit on it.
Ms. Mamedjeva, you said that this would be important for Ukrainian peace and security, but we're not talking about a NATO membership here. We're talking about the European Union. So how would that actually help Ukraine right now?
You see, I'm speaking, it's not only from the Ukrainian perspective, but European Union perspective, because it's clear time to take leadership for the European Union and continue to protect the values that the European Union must protect and why it was created for. We already have, as I said, the great consensus and support from the European Union members and actually citizens. What is important, we have unprecedented level. For example, almost 70% of Germans support Ukraine accession to the European Union. And we also proved that Ukraine able to integrate in the sphere even within the crisis. And now I'm speaking referring to a particular example with the energy sector. So Ukraine integrated in the its own system in the European energy system, and also consumer market. Ukrainian consumer market is a great potential for the European goods. Ukrainian labor potential. We already have 1 million Ukrainians that potentially contribute to the development of the economy of European economy.
Just to jump in there, Ms. Mamedjeva, are you concerned that Ukraine's aspirations towards EU membership could perhaps threaten the progress in any sort of peace talks with Russia?
Definitely, this is a choice of the Ukrainians, and it cannot be changed by the Russian will. And Ukraine will never be the sphere of the influence of Russia after what all happened and after all we bring and fighting for our freedom. So it's not the matter for the Russia to decide where Ukraine will be. It's Ukrainian will, and the nation of Ukraine is support now. 90% of Ukrainians wants to join, for the European choice of Ukraine.
And I do want to ask you, while we have you, we saw the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz today again rule out a NATO no-fly zone over Ukraine, even though your president has asked specifically for that. So what is your reaction to that?
Reaction of the NATO, you mean the position of the NATO this is actually negotiating, and we see that there is no probably the unity in member state, because we see how the different members approach this and understand actually the scale of the conflict, and this is not a conflict between Ukraine and Russia. This is a conflict between the European values and democratic values and dictatorship. So this is negotiated, and we still continue to appeal to the world, to the European Union, to the NATO, about what the danger we actually opposed to and what we fight to. So the world have to wake up and understand what are the risks, if not today, but sooner. If Ukraine's fall, the whole European security system fall.
We have to leave it there. Gulzana Mamediyeva, Director General of the Directorate for Strategic Planning and European Integration. Thank you very much for joining us on DW.
Thank you.
And Andrei Osadchuk is a member of the Ukrainian parliament for the opposition party Holos. Welcome to DW. Could you first start by giving us your impressions? What are you hearing from around the country?
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I was able to listen to the previous speaker on your air. So, in fact, everything is described correctly. So we have full-scale war. So everything what your imagination may paint about the nightmare of war exists now in Ukraine. The destruction of any kind of objects, school, hospital, museums, theater, churches, dead bodies on the streets, killing of kids and babies, millions of people who are trying to escape, some of them without any success, like not only in Mariupol, almost the same problem in Chernihiv, which is a big city on the eastern Ukraine. Kharkiv is in very complex situation. So it is full-scale, terrible war, which was organized by Russian political regime and which is executed by Russian military. And I would emphasize that I do not think that it's correct to blame just Vladimir Putin, because thousands and thousands of Russian soldiers who are piloting jet fighters and attacking helicopters, who are pressing buttons on missiles launch systems, all of them are attacking Ukraine. All of them are committing crimes, because it is crimes against humanity. It is war crimes. That's reality of Ukraine for today. But Ukraine is resisting, is extremely good. So we know how to fight. We learn how to fight. We burn Russians on the ground extremely well. In reality, for this almost month of the war, so Russians get stuck almost in all points of the front line. I want to remind everyone that Russians are attacking us from all sides, and our border with Russia is almost 2,000 kilometers. So plus they use the Belarusian border too, because we shall all remember that Belarus also the part of aggression against Ukraine, because till today the Belarusian land was used for Russian jet fighters and for Russian troops to enter Ukraine. So we are fighting extremely good. In fact, we stopped them. The Russian losses are huge. Till today, they lose already more than Soviet Union lost in war in Afghanistan, which lasted 10 years.
It's unfortunate to hear the losses on both sides, especially among civilians, and what you're describing there is extensive war crimes. Just tell me, your father was also a member of parliament and voted for independence in 1991. What would he have said about what's happening now?
I would say that my father did a great job in 1991 with a very small group of Ukrainian Democrats who was fighting for Ukrainian independence. And they used that unique chance, which was in 1991 to create a new state. Because our confrontation with Russia, it's very, very long story. Unfortunately, not many people understand all these details, but it is confrontation for the last 300 years. And we built our country. We did our best to develop an independent Ukraine finally. But today, it's continuation of all the wars which Ukrainian people had with Russia before. Because without Ukraine, all the logic of Russian Empire is collapsing. Because everything what they promote into the external world, mostly about Christian religion and so on and so forth, everything is coming from Kiev, because Kiev was the cradle of all this civilization. So Russians are trying to fight for their legend, for their identity, and for us, it's the issue of life and death. So,
well,
like my father,
this fight for independence has obviously backfired. So, what's next? And tell me, what would your father have said?
Till the end, we shall continue the job which previous generations of Ukrainians did. Ukrainians were fighting for our land in 1920s, in 1940s and 1950s, and now in 2022 we continue this fight. So it's very, very long story, and we are a huge nation. We are still 40 million people in the center of Europe, being in the largest country of the Europe. And definitely we are not going to step back. So neither me, nor my father, if he would stay here with me now, or no other Ukrainian politicians will agree on any compromise with Putin on territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukrainian lands in the borders which were internationally recognized in 1991. So we will fight till the end. And again, we are doing this very, very well. Our big problem for today is protecting of Ukrainian sky. Russians, they're not able to move on the ground. They're not able to kill Ukrainian soldiers. They are killing civilians, and they are taking us by cruise missiles and jet fighters. That's why we need more help from the West to protect our sky. We are repeating this for 4 weeks already. That's the only option how we can win this war.
Let's see what sort of response you get when world leaders come together on Thursday. There are various summits being held, and that will certainly be one topic of discussion. Andrei Osadchuk, member of the Ukrainian Parliament, thank you very much.